All right, here we go. As you can see here with this image, we're going to learn how to make a zombie portrait, but I'm going to use some different pictures here, so let's put that away. All right, so the first thing you need to do is you need to get a background picture, which we're going to use this skull here with a hood. We need our cracked surface to add some skin texture, and we need our portrait. Look at that handsome devil. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you need to get all three pictures open in Photoshop, which we did, so you see the tabs up here at the top. The next thing we need to do is we need to get all three images in the same document. So to do that, I'm going to use my skull as the background. So I'm going to go to my first image. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say on the layer, I'm going to say duplicate layer. And then I'm going to call it face. And then here I'm going to say skull head is my destination document. So I'm going to send it to the skull head and say OK. I'm going to close that window and I can see here it's right on top of that face. So then I'm going to go to the cracked surface one. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to say duplicate layer. I'm going to call it cracked. Oops. I'm going to call it cracked. And then I'm going to say skull head is again my destination document. I'm going to say OK. And then there we go. So here's my cracked. Here's my face. Here's my background. I'm going to double click on background and I'm going to call this one skull. And that also makes it a layer. So now I have these three movable layers here. All right, let's hide the crack layer for now. So I'm going to hit this little eyeball here. I'm going to start working on the face. So first thing I'm going to do is I have to size the face so that it fits on top of the skull. So I'm going to go here to the top tool, to my transforming tool. I'm going to make sure show transform controls is selected so I can see these bumps. I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to grab these corners and start to pull this out. Now obviously I don't have enough room to stretch this. So I'm going to say command minus and I'm going to shrink that down a little bit. I'm going to grab the corners again with the shift key and I'm going to pull this larger. Now I can't see what I'm doing, so what I have to do is I have to turn down the opacity of this layer to like, I don't know, 48%, 50%, so that I can see my face on top of the skeleton. All right, so I'm going to make this bigger, a little bigger, like that. Fit the eyeballs, I guess where I think the eyeballs go right there. All right, once I like what I have, I'm going to hit the check mark. Then I'm going to hit Command plus, and I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. I can hide the face so I can see where my glasses are right in there. Everything's actually not too bad of a shape. My nose is a little high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform my face a little bit so that it fits within this picture a little bit better. To do that, I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Free Transform. I'm going to push Command T on my keyboard, making sure that I'm on the face layer, right? I'm going to click on this button right up here. This is a transforming grid. So here I can pull this down a little bit. I can stretch my eyes so you can see I'm stretching the face a little bit, making it fit in here. I'm pulling the nose down. I can pull the cheeks down. If I zoom out again, Command minus, I can actually grab these points here and I can start to stretch in this part and it just sort of narrows my face a little bit. You know, or I can bring my face a little broader. If I want to stretch it out this way a little bit, I can do that too. Then I'm going to say OK. Again, always hitting that check mark when I'm done. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And then here's my face. So the next thing I need to do, let me zoom out one bump, is I need to get rid of this background because I don't want the office and that little baby and all that stuff to be in there. So I got to get rid of those guys. All right, so let's bring this back up to 100% opacity, just like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer mask on here, but I'm going to show you a different way of creating a layer mask. We're going to make a selection first and then put a layer mask on face to get rid of this background. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 tools down. I'm going to use my quick selection tool. If you don't see this tool right here, if you hold down on it with your mouse, you'll see some selections underneath. Make sure it says quick selection and not magic wand. All right, up here you'll see this is brush size is up here, so I can change the size of my selection tool. I can change the hardness of an edge. I can also say regular. I can add to my selection or I can subtract to my selection. So I'm going to start with regular. The larger the brush, the less control you have over it. The smaller the brush, the more detail. So here I just painted in this whole spot here. I'm missing a little bit of the hair, like so. I'm going to paint a little bit of the brow, or this here, a little bit of the cheeks, a little bit. Then I got this background here. So to get rid of this background, I'm going to go to my minus. I'm going to tap that square, got rid of that. I'm going to tap that little triangle up there, I got rid of that. All right, so for the most part, here's a little bit of my ear. It looks pretty good. Here's a little bit right here, just like that. All right, so I have my head selected and my background is not selected. It gets a little bit tricky, like optical illusion wise here. You have to make sure that I can see this dotted line goes all the way around the inside here. And that has selected just my head, and there's no dotted line out here. So there's nothing selected here. You want to be careful you don't get the opposite selection. All right, so from here, I'm going to go down next door to the black and white cookie to this layer mask button. I'm going to click it. There we go, and I just layer masked. The background is showing here, And then here's my head right here. So if I can see, there's the skull, there's my head. Now my head doesn't fit on here exactly. I can see some of the skull, so it's not going to be absolutely perfect. But it is what it is. If I want to make sure that that skull part is perfect, I could click on my head before, and I could have made the head a little wider to cover that, but we're just going to get through this part here. All right, so now you can see the edge of my head is really sort of fuzzy and gross and terrible. It doesn't look very smoothly transitioned. The compositing of these two images, it looks really obvious that my head is sitting on there. So let's clean that up. So you click on your layer mask here for your head, and then you go up to select and mask, which is up here at the top. If you don't see this button up here at the top, if you double click on your layer mask, it will enter you into this selecting and masking layer, right? Which is also okay. Or you can go up here and hit select and mask, same thing. All right, so what we're gonna do then is we are gonna go to this menu here under view. There's a different ways to look at your layer mask. We're gonna go to overlay, just like that. And now anything that's red is the mask, right, is the hole in our picture, so you can see the skull back there. And anything that is not red is just our face. So now we need to fix up our edge. So number one we can do is we can just paint that edge. So here, there's a lot of tools in here. We're just going to take a look at this third brush down. We're going to select that brush, and then I'm going to see the plus, the minus, and again, our good friend, the brush size here. So with plus and minus, you can add layer mask or you can take layer mask away. I'm going to try to clean up this edge. So I'm going to say Command plus. I'm going to zoom in again. If I hold down the space bar on my keyboard, it turns my cursor into a little hand, and I can pull my face over like this. All right, I'm going to let go, and when I hit minus, it's adding layer mask to my edge here, so I'm cleaning up this edge. I can see here I have some bad artifacts here too. I'm going to clean this crack up here, and I'm going to smooth out this line. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to get a little closer here. I'm going to try to cut this background out here, like so. Oops. Get rid of this silver, because anytime you see that halo, like that little white line around there, that really is just sort of the giveaway that you have, that you're layer masking something and that it's a collage. If you want to bring back some of that hair, I just go up here to plus, and I just paint in the opposite direction, and I can bring some of that back. All right, let's go over to this side. There we go. So like here, if I want to smooth this out this way, I can make that line a little smoother this way, but then I go back to my minus, and I cut this out here. My glasses are missing here, so I might go to plus. There you go. So creep that out there a little bit. But then again, my glasses are right at the edge, like that. Bring this up the side. Smooth this out. It looks like my ear is missing. I don't know if from this angle there's much of an ear. Look for it. Yeah, there it is right there. There's a little bit right there. So now I'm going to go with minus again. I'm going to clean that up right on the edge of that. Just like that. Clean up this corner a little bit. All right, I'm going to bring this down here. Like that. All right, so you're getting the idea. You can even give yourself a little bit of a shave here, right? I'm going to clean this up here. Kind of a mess. Perfect. All right, Command minus, Command minus, Command minus. Now, I did a pretty good job of cleaning this up. All right, I missed these spots down here. But there's still a little bit of that halo-y fuzz around the outside. So your first line of attack here is using this brush and this plus and minus. All right, the second one is if I look over here, I can start to change the actual edge of my picture. If you can't see your background very well, you can adjust the opacity of your layer mask. So here it's totally red. Here it is starting to see through so I can see that background a little bit. All right, I'm going to temporarily change this to black and white. You do not have to do this. I'm just doing it so you can see the edge. All right, so we have smooth. What smooth will do is it smooths out the edge of your layer mask so that it's not so bumpy, which is good. So maybe I'll smooth it in a minute. You can feather. What the feather does is it softens the edge of your layer mask. So you can see here, I can do it so it all obliterates it completely. You don't want to go that far. You just want that edge to be blurry, right? So you can't see the two where they connect. Contrast is the opposite of feather. It sharpens the edge of your mask so that it's nice and crisp. And then shift edge, actually, like a balloon, it deflates your layer mask so that it gets a little bit smaller, or it inflates your layer mask so it gets a little bit larger and captures more of your image. Again, a little hard to see. This image mask is pretty large. All right, so let's go back to our overlay, and let's use some of these tools. All right, so I'm going to smooth out my layer mask. You can already see, like, if you keep an eye on the hair edge here, let me zoom in maybe one. Like watch this hair edge here as I smooth things out. All right, it makes it a little bit softer. So I'm going to smooth it. I'm going to feather it. This is going to be the main one. Check out that hair. All right, see the way it's, oops, there's a little delay there. I don't want to feather too much because, again, my ear melts. Right, I'm going to do my contrast so that it sharpens, that crisps the edge a little bit there so it finds it better. And then I'm going to shift my edge. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. There we go. So look at that hair edge is much better, right? This is still a little sharp here, so I'm going to turn the contrast down. And I'm going to feather it just a little bit more. There we go, so it looks a little softer. So that looks pretty darn good, right? So I'm getting rid of that. You know, again, if you want to come back in here with your minus and just sort of anything that's glaringly white, you know, you don't want that, again, that halo, I call it, where that edge is, you know, just screaming that you sort of put those two things together. Also, don't forget your brush hardness and softness. My brush is at 100% hardness. I can turn the softness way down on my brush, and that will also help me sort of transform that. But again, you just want to go, you want to be little changes, little changes. All right, so once I have everything in place, I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to zoom out one. So now I can see that my head is fitting inside of here. Now the problem is I want that hood, I want this hood to come over the top of my person, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my face again. I'm going to turn the opacity of this layer down a little bit more, right, just like that. And then I'm going to go back to my layer mask here. I'm going to use my regular paintbrush, which is this guy here. I'm going to use black. I am going to make sure that my brush is just round, right? And I'm going to paint this hood out here. All right, and what I'm doing is I'm just basically, you can see my layer mask is changing here. I'm just erasing that hood on the top. Okay, so when I bring the opacity of my layer back up to 100%, I can see here, I can come back and I can sort of fix that. I'll zoom in a little bit. Use my space bar, pull my face down, and fix that up here like that. All right, my brush is maybe a little too soft, so I'm going to harden the edge of my brush a little bit. And I'm going to try to just get that hood here, just like that. Perfect. All right, and remember, if you go the other way, I just flip-flop to white, and I can get that like that. But I actually kind of like the shadow, like this dark shadow from the skull. So if I go here, and I go to a black brush, and I soften my brush, let's go hardness is 0. Oops. Oh, it's history brush. Sorry, wrong brush. Here, I'm going to say hardness to 0. I'm going to make a fairly large brush. I'm going to turn my opacity down to 39%, and I'm just going to lightly bring that layer mask back here a little bit. It automatically creates that drop shadow in there, which is really kind of cool. All right, so all I'm doing here to create that shadow, I know it looks like magic here, right? It's not really. All it is I am making this edge, the top edge of this mask fuzzy over here so that I can see the skull there. I can see the blackness of that skull as it sort of shows here. So I'm just using the natural shadow of the skull to create what appears to be a shadow on my head here. All right, you guys see that? Pretty cool. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to zoom out now. So there we go. Look at that great shadow up here, right? Let's make this shadow even more. I'm going to even shadow a little bit of my ears here a little bit. And I'm going to shadow the side of my head here a little bit more. So it sort of fades in. And again, you can see that skull over here. You might just choose a better picture next time or a wider picture in there. All right, so that is that, right?